Welcome back to another episode of the Beyond the Batter's Box podcast. I'm your host, Nick Kemper. I have Terry Phillips with me today, and then appearing on our podcast is Adam Moreau, who is the founder of FlexPro Grip. For backstory here, Terry has a FlexPro in his office right now, and I tried to get him to wear it for the pod, but he wasn't about it. So basically, like for the viewers, it's like a Bionic arm. So there it is.
There we go. See,
There
yeah,
it is.
I'll wear it. If
Yeah.
Nick's
we
not
could.
allowed to wear it, I'll put it on.
Yeah.
We have an upcoming episode that's going to be most amount of TJs on one podcast.
Yeah.
We could have just set the world record for most amount of Flex Pros on one podcast.
That's right, because I do think 2 would be the world record.
Somebody had to have got two, at least.
Someone
At least
would
not a
someone
few.
would just record one. Someone would record one the next day with 3, just one on each arm and one on the guest arm.
Just to spur it. Just,
We can cultivate that though for the future. Let me know, guys. I'm
For
fully
sure.
prepared to do that.
Adam, to start, since we're talking about FlexPro, it's relatively new. Like, we're talking, 6 years, right? 2019?
Yes, and saying 2019 when I was reading through the questions list ahead of time is almost like a whoa, gosh, has it really been that long? And if we really want to peel back the layers, I don't know if it technically has. So we started doing all the research dating back to kind of 2018, 2019. 2020, COVID kind of blessed us with a long runway where the world shut down, and we were able to dig our heads in the research. And thankfully, with things like PubMed and our connections in the sports medicine world, people were able to throw us research article after research article and just kind of redesign what we thought FlexPro Grip was going to be. And if we start with FlexPro, with what FlexPro was going to be back in 2018, 19, and then January of 2020, really before the world shut down, it was going to look like J-bands for the fingers, and it was going to be terrible. I am willing to put my hand up and say that. Like we were in an awful spot. It all sounded good. The research was there. Everything to make a good product, we felt like we had, and we just never executed on what the product was actually going to be. So thankfully, COVID offered us that longer period where we couldn't produce anything, thankfully, and actually got to retool. So we went from a device that utilized external load to the device that we have now that utilizes load cells or force transducers and communicates with a mobile app on iOS devices. Sorry, Terry. I know you have to use an iPad for that one. So iPhones, iPads, Macs, and then the device is a quote-unquote dumb device or stupid device, but it communicates with a smartphone or a smart device to give you your force readouts. So every time you press with your fingers, whether it's an individual finger or all the fingers together, you get a readout from each one of those individual data points, as well as from the wrist laterally for all neuroradial deviation. And then from there, we also get how fast force can be produced. So, Nick, I know getting into the device construction necessarily wasn't the beginning of the question of
It's okay.
what it's been since 2019 when we say we've been producing or like starting FlexPro Grip. But really, I say our true jumping off point is the fall of 21 when we started our preliminary work with the San Diego Padres. And then we kind of started soft selling in February of 2022. And we ultimately launched our public sales and started aggressively trying to bring in more people in February of 2023. So when you say it really hasn't been that long, we still view ourselves as infants as well. So I definitely do not take any offense whatsoever to you saying we're a pretty new product, and I would even say we're probably even newer than what our website would say.
Well, honestly, I think that's impressive even more because you look at how FlexPro's taken off. I mean, I remember, I had, a couple TJs myself and like going through rehab, like didn't have anything like that back then because obviously it was before it was built. And now I feel like everywhere I go, and working in baseball, obviously, like I see it everywhere. And every single TJ kid has it. Every single rehab kid has it. Every single kid that has an arm injury, basically Terry puts it on it. And like you talked about, like with the Padres, like you guys started off kind of like at the top of the top, right? Like I feel like most companies don't go to like the best players in the world as their first clientele. Like how did you land that?
It was far from our intention. That's pretty funny to joke about now. We fully thought we would start at the bottom and work up and kind of trickle throughout baseball. And instead, we were fortunate enough that a few people at the highest level of the game were super interested in FlexPro and enabled us to start at the top and then trickle down. Now, there are amazing opportunities that come with that. However, there are a lot of difficulties that come with it. Of course, the opportunities are that you are kind of granted the opportunity to have a little more financial runway where you can tool and you can reproduce the device, or you can continue to iterate instead of just like throwing something out in the world and having to wait for cash to come in before fixing what might be going wrong. However, no player, especially at the highest level of the game, wants to feel like a guinea pig. They want to know exactly what is going on at all times, which created a kind of a difficult situation with our initial group with the Padres. Now, when we were just doing strength-related stuff or just rate of force development-related stuff to try to look at spin rate in very controlled settings, everything was kosher. Like, everything was fine. But then when we got to a point, like, hand up, we can admit that we probably overstressed a few athletes on the training side just because we weren't, I don't think we had a full grasp of just how novice most athletes are when it comes to high intensity forearm training.
Yeah.
And as weird as it sounds, like, yeah, everyone has done their rice buckets and their hangs and their grip work and fingertip push-ups and tennis ball squeezes for however long. I mean, that's what we did growing up in the game because our old school coaches told us we needed to squeeze tennis balls. However, the intensity that squeezing a tennis ball requires, as you're squeezing one now, probably trying to prevent your third TJ from what it sounds like, is never going to be intense enough to stress the musculature in a way that is going to ultimately provide the stiffness or the muscle tendon tissue quality necessary to offload stress from the UCL. I know I threw a bunch of qualifies in there, but that's what we need when we train. And that's why we created FlexPro the way we did. It's why traditional forearm training doesn't work, is the intensity, the time under tension, and the style of loading is never going to be enough, or it's very difficult to measure in traditional forearm exercises. But we created a way to measure that. So then when we take that and we applied it to the group with the Padres, it's pretty simple when guys are in an off season and it doesn't really matter if they're sore. But then when guys started throwing, or throwing became very important, that became a little bit more difficult because not only did we not know, the organization didn't really know either. And things kind of stalled for a little bit, but we learned a ton, which was great for us, but it kind of halted what we were able to do in the professional world, because then word got out like, oh, guys who use FlexPro get sore. And we have to understand that if we're training and we're training hard, guys are going to get sore, right? Like that's pretty simple. However, we needed to account for how sore or how to on-ramp. And those were things that we didn't have fully ironed out yet. And why I say like starting at the highest level was amazing, because it gave us the financial security and ultimately the ability to produce a little bit more in spread. However, it didn't give us the time to iron out those things because we were immediately with the most valuable assets on the planet when it comes to those who throw a baseball.
So how did you end up growing then? If like your first kind of like criticism was from like some of the highest levels, like that's probably hard to come back from.
So not only were the first criticism from the highest level, but also were the first major success stories. So like of course I gave you a look into the hard stuff, and I don't want to make it sound like it was like we were all down in the dumps all the time with this contract with the Padres. Like amazing. Like we discovered a few amazing things. Like guys who trained on FlexPro got stronger, and because of the quality of training that they were exposed to, not only do they get stronger, but they also were able to improve muscle tendon unit stiffness, or use strength as a vehicle for muscle tendon unit stiffness, which is ultimately what we're chasing for a higher quality tissue, something that can be more resistant to fatigue and better support the UCL in medial elbow stability. That's why UCLs break down, basically. The UCL has to do too much. And with FlexPro, we can train those dynamic stabilizers or the muscle tendon units to be the front line of defense, not a tertiary line of defense. Now, we start with guys getting stronger, which was amazing. Next thing we learned is because no one really trains the forearm the way that they should, we also had in this unbelievable unlock when it came to the cross-education principle. Terry will be unbelievably familiar with that, and I should probably step back and let him explain it because he's the clinician. But from my more novice understanding on the strength coach side and designing FlexPro Grip, what it basically means is what you do on one side of your body isn't just for one side of your body. You can still get benefit on the other side, especially with something really specific like finger movements, because those are controlled from a similar spot in the brain. So the nerve firing is very similar. Even if you're only doing a right-handed task, you're still going to have some nerve firing on the left side. Thus, if we have someone fresh out of surgery who got operated on their right arm, we can have them train from the jump on their left arm. Or if a guy is injured and can't do anything with his right arm, we can train on the left arm and at least prevent the detraining effect from occurring. I'm not here to say that guys are going to get unbelievably strong by only training on their offhand, but what we can do is slow that detraining process and hopefully keep the neural firing pattern that's ultimately going to enable someone to be healthy down the line. So that was a major learning point. Then, when season kicked off, we had this awesome study. Now, it's not a clinical trial, but we wrote about it. We have a white paper on our website about it. We were able to do a rate of force development study on how training on FlexPro Grip for the speed at which you can apply finger force in the device and then translate finger force to the ball ultimately impacts spin rate on an individual's primary fastball variant. Now, we've seen this on other pitches as well, but we focused on fastballs for this study. And with these guys who were in the Arizona Complex League competing, they were pitching. It was all guys who were pitching, trained on FlexPro Grip twice a week for rate of force development. They were not cued for anything on a coaching side, on how to spin the ball better or anything like that. But they trained on FlexPro Grip for, it was 12 weeks, twice a week, so 24 total sessions. Those guys gained 4% in their spin to velocity ratio. What that means in hard numbers is roughly 100 to 150 RPMs per guy. Now what that means on the pitch movement side, not just spin, is roughly an inch to an inch and a half of additional carry on a four-seam heater. And obviously an inch to an inch and a half of additional movement is a good bit when you think about how thick the barrel of a baseball bat actually is. So, Nick, yes, we had some struggles, but also those 3 points coming off of our first 8 months working with the Padres gave us so much evidence that we were at least going the right direction and we were getting results that nobody else had ever seen. Nobody's been able to improve spin rate legally. Nobody has been able to nobody has been able to specifically target the finger flexor muscles and actually determine how much they're being targeted. And then we were able to show evidence to cross-education. So something on the prevention / rehabilitation side, something truly on the rehabilitation side or in-season maintenance, and then something for straight up performance. So kind of the three things that we care about when it comes to baseball players. How do we keep them on the field? How do we get them on the field? And then how do we get them better when they actually are on the field?
Right. What made you guys kind of get into this in the first place? Like we just talked about how, you improved it and found something that nobody else had. What made you even think of doing that?
Well, I mentioned quickly there that I kind of serve as a strength and conditioning coach. That's like this little thing that exists in the background for me. I have a CSCS. Granted, anyone can get a CSCS if they read a book and take a test, so I'm not trying to say that makes me better than anyone else. However, when I finished my playing career, Daryl, my partner with FlexPro Grip, so I know you said founder earlier. I would love to just say I'm the founder. I am the co-founder. My father and I founded FlexPro Grip together. So that's kind of fun that we do this as a tag team. It's all good. He gets enough credit being the dad, because granted it wouldn't exist if it wasn't for him. So me being founder still technically, I guess that gives him founder status as well. However, as I was saying, when I finished my playing career, we started a training facility in New Orleans. Now, I was still trying to rehab and get back on the field. A shoulder injury basically derailed everything for me. But I figured if I was going to be training to get back on the field, I might as well have some athletes train with me. Things happen. You end up renting out a space in a baseball facility. More guys come in. You buy a bunch of equipment. Next thing you know, you have a full-blown sports performance training facility in the middle of New Orleans. So with me not making the show, and Daryl, my partner, being a basketball background guy with previous work in healthcare, so nothing but on the business side of healthcare, so nothing specific to the elbow or arm health or anything, we knew we needed to be married to the research and married to the science when it came to getting athletes better. We couldn't rely on a name. Thus, all those things I said earlier about reading everything that was publicly available online to try to build the best thing we could, that all started with trying to build the best athletes we could and try to understand what has been proven to actually get someone better at moving or better at producing force, or what correlates to throwing velocity. And there was this little thing that always kind of popped up, or we kept seeing, and it was these really fun studies that were coming out of Japan or Korea or adolescent baseball in the US, that grip strength had this unbelievably high correlation to throwing velocity and exit velocity, especially in prepubescent populations. And now correlation isn't necessarily causation, but we thought like, let's just start training grip like crazy, and guys will eventually throw harder or swing harder. Now, we still did all our med ball stuff, and we did our traditional lifting, our bands, and all the things that you see in a standard facility. However, we were constantly in the background trying to figure out what this role of grip was. Then 2018 comes around, and we're running our college summer thing, and that was the big boom in the industry where summer ball became the devil, and everyone needs to come train at a facility if they actually want to get better and move to the next level. I'm saying that as a guy who played summer ball for a bunch of years and coached summer ball. I love summer ball. It's the most fun I ever had playing baseball. Yep. But with that, we knew we needed guys to come in and train, keep our roofs open, or our roof open, or no, not roof open, our door open, our roof on. There we go. That's the proper phrasing. Sorry about that, guys. We don't want an open roof. We want that thing closed. But athletes coming in to see us, and we figured our best method would be if we could become the elbow facility. There was already Eric Cressy in the Sturdy Shoulder program. So if you had a shoulder issue, Cressy basically had the market cornered. If you wanted to gain velocity, that was just Driveline's MO at that time. Come here, throw hard. That's it. And we knew we couldn't compete with marketing on Top Velocity's YouTube videos or what Randy Sullivan was presenting as a physical therapist out of, at the time, Florida Baseball Ranch. So we needed a niche. And we figured our niche could be the elbow place. So what we started off doing was applying all that research, and we figured kind of like a 4 to 6 week dedicated stretch of reading everything we thought would be available on elbows could put us in the best position to tell people that they should come train with us, because we can prevent elbow injuries, or we can help you come back from an elbow injury. What we realized, and what we thought was going to be that 4 to 6 week period of, I guess that was kind of like March and April gearing up for summer of 2018, is that no one had any concrete evidence as to why UCLs were tearing. So then everything shifted for us from trying to get athletes to come in our doors to train with us to trying to figure out why UCLs actually tear. So why I said like 2019 is kind of like weird to say where we started. That's just when research really became our life. And I'm calling it research. Research for us was reading every article that had been published from Dr. Job's first Tommy John surgery all the way to whatever had come out prior that year in 2019 that had anything to do with the elbow, the shoulder, the torso, ground reaction forces during a throw, anything about energy transfer. We seriously, at the time, our library of studies was probably 200 plus research articles. And at the time, because we weren't in a position where we could have any thoughts for ourselves, our brains just became walking encyclopedias of like, oh yeah, that point you just made, that was from the Escamilla study of 2007 where he claimed this, but unfortunately it wasn't disproven, but there was a counter fact that came up in the 2011 camp study. Like that just became our existence of trying to figure out who has done what and how to connect these dots. It was Charlie from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia just pointing at the villain board or whatever, the suspect board. And what we found is like all of that craziness just boiled down to the capacity problem that actually exists in the elbow. And that's we have so few things that can actually handle the stress. So we have the muscle tendon units, we have the UCL itself, and then we have the bones running into each other on the backside of the elbow during maximum external rotation. We can't train those bones to collide harder. I mean, that's a recipe for disaster. We can't train the UCL to be stronger or be tougher, but we can train those muscle tendon units. And we were like, great, we solved why UCL tears happen. And then we were like, all right, well, that means nothing, because now we've just determined that the muscle tendon units actually have to do something. So now how do we get those muscle tendon units to actually do more? And then we were like, well, we should probably figure out what muscle tendon units actually matter. And this was, again, at a time where the leading thought of why UCL injuries happened was guys are pronating at the wrong time while they're coming through ball release, which not ideal if that's our leading thought. Thankfully,
those were dark times, Adam.
However, it created this runway for us to bust through the door like the Kool-Aid man and be like, we can change this. But we were able to identify the flexor digitorum superficialis, the flexor carpi ulnaris, as the primary two dynamic stabilizers of the UCL. And then a third muscle that basically never gets talked about, the flexor digitorum profundus, as the muscle that controls the fingertip, also having a small role in dynamic stability of the UCL. So these are three muscles that are incredibly difficult to train, even more difficult to measure what kind of impact they are creating in any sort of movement. And from there, we're like, great. If we know what muscles we need to train, let's just figure out how to train them. And then that was, I guess, all the background story. We just told we told the origin story of FlexPro Grip like the Star Wars saga. We started at episode 4, and then we just worked all the way around to restart. That's basically what we did here, because then we were at the point where we're like, all right, well, now let's just figure out how to train those muscles. And then that's when we had those external loads, and we were trying to hold things off the fingers, and we realized that would never work because we couldn't quantify anything. And then we ultimately built FlexPro to be what it is today. So sorry for the
I'm glad you-
long-winded answer, Nick.
No, that was perfect. I'm especially glad you brought up the citing specific authors of studies because it perplexes me to this day how people can just like be in a normal conversation about whatever topic and then be like, oh, Bergeshansi talked about that in '04. And it was like, how do you remember the specific names of the study? Like remembering the study's one thing, but the specific author and like when it was authored in is like a whole different bit. So thank you for that. That was good. Secondly, I'm still holding this tennis ball, by the way. I'm thinking about FlexPro Grip now.
Good.
What was or like, did you have any initial drawback? Because I remember when, let's say plyo balls were coming out in like 2014. Like, a kid throws a plyo ball, somebody's like, what the hell is this idiot doing? Like, now, like, you have what looks like a bionic arm, basically. Like, that's like something that Iron Man would throw on in like a Marvel movie. Did you have anybody say to you, or like anybody that mattered, basically, say like, there's no way that this can work. It's another gimmick of the industry. What are you doing?
Yeah, all the time. And even more so because neither Daryl or I are clinicians. Like, I said the CSCS point earlier because having a CSCS, like just having that initial after my name even helped us not get laughed out of rooms. At least we were allowed in the rooms. Then after we left, they would laugh at us and be like, what is this father-son duo who has never been in professional baseball know about baseball, and even more so, know about elbow injuries? Because, yeah, we were not taken seriously for the longest time. And that's, Nick, why we needed to know what Glenn Fleissig said in his 2001 article, but then what he later discovered in his 2014 article that refuted what he actually found in 2001, and why when Andrews came out and said curveballs are the devil back in 1986, that he just said it because the industry needed something. We have now been able to find evidence to suggest why throwing supinated base pitches might actually be riskier, quote unquote, for certain elbows or for certain athletes. Like, if we weren't able to cite what other people said, we wouldn't have been taken seriously because we didn't have the credentials to be taken seriously. So being a walking encyclopedia was the price of entry for us to enter these rooms. And now, fortunately, we're in a position where we do have athletes at 100 plus colleges. We do have athletes in 26 or 27 of the big league organizations and have contracts with a few of them. And with that, it enables us to at least like kind of pass the vibe check at the door. Like, okay, these guys can at least come in the club. But there are still athletes because it looks weird, or their coaches or clinicians because it looks weird or it is different, or it's not something that they have ever seen before, or again, because it's coming from outsiders, aren't willing to trust it and are demanding to see results. And then sometimes even after they see results are still like, well, I don't think it's necessary because we can do it another way. And guys in my organization have never had an elbow injury. And to me, it's kind of short-sighted. Just because you haven't had an elbow injury doesn't mean that you are, it doesn't mean you have the perfect system and you will never have one in the future, right? Like, I mean, years ago, nobody could throw a ball over 100 miles per hour. And now everybody throws a ball 100 miles per hour. Although that's because the guns are juiced, right? It's not because anyone's actually better at baseball.
So Mizorowski would have thrown 90, 91 back in 1998.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, in Tom the meat cleaver Brosnahan. That's actually Tom Brosnahan is a guy. Sorry, Tom. I just threw you in as a Tom. I love you if you listen to this.
Tom just got a sick nickname.
We're not going to use. Although Tom Meat Cleaver Brosnahan would probably be a great name for, I don't know, the Kansas City Royals back in 1968. But whatever. Like, those were the guys. I mean, that guy who threw 83 back in that day actually threw 127 today. But yeah, Nick, I know we're starting to laugh a little bit. about this. But no, like that's why we went that route. And there are still people that do give us pushback, which is unfortunate, but we understand. Like, this is new, it is different. I know Terry, I mean, this is what people in Terry's shoes have to do. They have to be the ones that are accepting or understanding. It's often why the private sector makes sense for us first, or it's athletes who are on their second chance or who are on their last leg, who have tried quote unquote everything. So they're willing to just pick up this new whatever mystical device that they think could be snake oil, but if it works, then they have their ticket. Yep. And because Terry sees those kinds of people every single day, when those guys make it back and when those guys are better than they've ever been before, then that's when the word of mouth spreads and we're actually welcomed with open arms instead of left banging on the door hoping just for a chance to shout not what we think, but what the research shows.
Yeah, it's just it's very similar, like the driveline model from whatever, early or mid 2010s of like only the people who are really willing to experiment and be quote unquote weird were willing to do it. But now and predominantly it was like a lot of naysayers, but now it's like it's just everyone quote unquote does driveline. Everyone has a plyo program. Like everyone, you can get so many variations. But it's just been like I think Bodie used to refer to it as like guerrilla warfare of like you're just infiltrating from the ground up. Then once enough people get good and becomes more the norm. Like the people who are the naysayers are on the outside, and that's kind of where you guys are starting to get to now. It's like there's still gonna be people that are gonna be opposed to it. It's too weird. It's too different. It's not the way it has been done, but you're long term winning the battle here.
We aren't quite at radical acceptance. I mean, that would be amazing. That'll be unbelievable when we reach that point. Thankfully, plyo balls are there now, right? Like, there's a point, hand up. I thought plyo balls were bad because I didn't understand arm torques, and it didn't make sense to me. But because of reading and because of literature, I was able to come around, which is great. Like, that's what everyone should do. I'm not saying everyone should just accept everything, but we should have a willingness to learn in this industry. And when people like Terry, who formerly was a part of that crazy driveline revolution, were able to prove these things time and time again, then you should probably be willing to put your hand up and be like, wow, okay, like this does make sense. I'm willing to get on board. Because Terry, we fully believe that our arc, now to scale might not be the same, but we fully believe our arc is very similar to what Driveline had gone through. Going from the Devil to Mavericks and having your early adopters to kind of trending lightly towards radical acceptance. Hopefully we get there soon. That would make my life a little bit easier financially. There's no question about that. And I'm willing to laugh about it because it would be very fortunate for me if we reach radical acceptance. But going beyond the joke of it, I think baseball would be better off as a whole if we adopted that kind of training and that kind of science into arm care.
For sure. Yeah,
100%. I was gonna joke that like once we get the knockoff FlexPros, like the the tapped plastic plyo balls, then like it's like you guys have made it.
Yeah, I mean there have been a few similar type things, at least marketing-esque, that I have seen try to get compared to FlexPro, but I guess that's the beauty of individual finger training and utilizing load cells effectively as force plates, because what we are always going to stay married to, no matter what, is objective data, because that's ultimately going to be how we get better.
Have you guys looked into, because there's some data and studies out there with grip strength and exit velocity with hitters. Have you guys done anything with training hitters at all?
Specifically, no. However, Terry could probably tell you we do have a protocol series in our app for swing speed, that is more, I guess, in the belief, based on the studies that you have cited and I mentioned earlier, that grip strength does have a strong correlation to exit velocities or swing speed. I would take it a step further and say I believe ulnar deviation capabilities would also probably have a decent correlation to swing speed. So we believe if we could increase the rate of transfer or the amount of force transfer from the fingers into the handle of a bat, or the ability to deliver force through the wrist, you could probably swing a bat faster. That makes sense to me based on what we know on the kinetic chain and everything else that goes into, I guess, baseball performance. However, with FlexPro, we haven't done a specific study where I can tell you everyone who trained on FlexPro, every hitter who trained for 2 days a week over 8 weeks saw a 6.2 swing speed gain with a blast sensor on their handle, so we can validate it. That said, we are in the early stages. We are a week into it now, working with the Marshall's League in Utah. It's a collegiate summer league in Utah. And originally we were just going to do a study for fatigue, monitoring fatigue with their pitchers, but enough hitters showed interest in Utah that we should be able to run a little bit of, maybe not a full study, but maybe at least be able to monitor potential correlations between FlexPro Grip metrics and swing speed that these athletes produce in game.
Good. That's how it starts.
Nick, can you pause it?
Pause it?
Yeah, my headphones are gonna die.
I don't even know how to pause it, honestly. I think
Okay, I'll just we're gonna edit this part out, but I'm gonna take my headphones out.
Yeah, you're good.
You hear me?
Yep, you're good.
Okay. Sorry about that. I only got to like 54%, and apparently that's equivalent of 35 minutes.
Yep, that's how it works in modern technology. They're trying to get you, Terry, so they can just get you to buy more.
What's that?
They're trying to get you so they can just get you to buy more.
Yeah. I need the dummy headphones.
Yeah. Well, so as I was gonna say, players, like, that's how it starts basically. It's like once the players start to want to do things, coaches have to change. Like I remember going through the college recruitment process when I was younger, and I would always ask coaches like, "What's your development plan like?" And they would always give me some cliche, "Oh, we somehow get players better." It was like they give me this long winding answer that hope I just get tired through it, and then like by the end of it they're like, "Yeah, and by the way, like we get players better." And eventually, and you start to see this with like the bigger programs now, like players want objectifiable, concrete data they can track every single day and actually see, okay, I'm getting better at this, which is directly correlated to the field. And ultimately, like when players start doing that, administrations, coaching staffs, organizations, they have to basically adapt and say, okay, great, we have to do this, we have to invest in driveline, FlexPro Grip, whatever the case may be, because our players want it, it gets our players better. At the end of the day, players being happy is what drives the whole game. So I think that's really good that you guys are starting to see that now, especially from like the side of the game with hitters that FlexPro wasn't built for per se. That's awesome. I would love to see that study come out like once it gets done. Like I'd love to see the data on that. I think that'd be really cool.
I mean, I'm excited for sure. And Nick, if you don't mind, I want to piggyback on what you were saying about the data specifically, because I think this is very timely. I even saw this post today on my morning Instagram scroll from Ryan Aguirre, who works with Chapman Baseball Compound. He does some individual stuff as well down in California. But he was talking about data actually being actionable, and how so many coaches just collect data. So even taking the statement that you made, Nick, and trying to move it along a step further, when we went through the recruiting process, it was you're just going to compete every single day, and it's like with the quality of competition, it's going to force you to get better. And if you don't, so be it, you'll just go somewhere else. But it is going to force someone to get better. And then that's how we develop, because you're going to be pushed to all ends of the earth every single day. Then it turned into, well, you're going to compete like crazy, and we're going to track all this stuff on you so we can see if you're getting better. But now those who are doing it best are able to take that information and say, oh, we're not just seeing if this athlete is getting better, but we can utilize that information and apply it back to your own development. To we can always get caught up in the word of individualization. I believe Terry and I even spoke about this when I had him on the Layback podcast months and months ago. Because, we don't need to individualize everything, but we can tailor your own development process to either take advantage of your strengths or to try to neutralize your weaknesses and try to elevate your floor. And with something like FlexPro, what we're very passionate about when we work with an individual, or even more so when we work with a college team or a pro team, is trying to identify where an athlete might have a red flag, or where we have something that we should be doing differently. Doesn't mean we need to lengthen their throwing program, their on-ramp for a season, because they are weak in the muscles that matter most to protecting the UCL. That doesn't mean that we're going to keep that athlete out from throwing, but we can utilize the data to change that athlete's progression to hopefully be better for the long haul. Or if an athlete produces force significantly faster on their middle finger compared to their index finger, but they aren't throwing a seam shifted wake sinker, maybe that's a pitch that we can lean into, because we've seen athletes with similar grip profiles on FlexPro have success with that type of pitch. So then we're not only are we collecting data to just see if someone is getting better, we are actually utilizing the data to determine a plan for an athlete to get better.
I'm glad you differentiated between the two, because that is a valuable piece of the development process. Like, I remember I had coaches that would basically be like, yeah, we have Rapsodo, we're going to put it on you every day. And then it's like, all right, but how are we going to use it? And they would almost like look at me and get pissed, as if like that answer wasn't good enough for me, and like, I'll have to do my job now type of thing.
No, their answer is, but Nick, that's your spin rate.
Yeah. Like, that's not good enough for you? Like
what else do you want? You can see your spin rate.
Yeah. Oh, you want to get better at it? Oh, dude. That's a valuable piece. That, once again, I think coaches around the country, both in the college and high school setting, and then obviously pro ball too, like they're getting better at understanding, okay, what this data actually means, and how to actually interpret it and then utilize it to get players better. Because having the technology isn't good enough. Like, you need to have the understanding of how to use it. And we've all known the guy that is like, yeah, we have TrackMan and Hit Tracks and Blast at our facility. And it's like, okay, how often do you use it? Every day. Okay, well, what do you use it to get better at? I don't know. So, yeah.
Right. Here's the numbers.
Yeah, just take it. Right. You mentioned that you and your dad, kind of going back to like you guys as a company, have you guys expanded at all? Like, you guys obviously have grown financially. You guys have grown with your like notoriety within the game, but is it just still you and your dad running it?
So Daryl and I are the co-founders. Daryl is the CEO. I am the president. We say of baseball, but kind of just president. And also in a small company, what do titles really mean? It's kind of like choose whatever title you want, because you have to wear so many hats anyways. Yeah. So none of that I think really matters at the end of the day. It's just cool to place on like a bio when we get announced somewhere. Right. But no, we have a couple other player-facing or account-facing individuals. That would be Gavin Kipe-Stroud, who's our director of operations. He lives out in Los Angeles. He was a former athlete of ours at our training facility way back in the day, as well as our director of performance, who is John Jones. Those guys were college teammates together briefly. John is kind of our director of performance is his official title. He basically heads up all of our individual amateur clients that we have. So anyone college or below that picks up FlexPro Grip, they're likely interacting with John unless it's someone I have a connection to or Gavin or Daryl has a connection to, and then we're training or like developing the plans with that individual directly. Gavin is a little bit more behind the scenes, but because he was player facing, he still has maintained some of his athletes. Plus, none of us are in the West Coast besides Gavin. So if Gavin needs to make an on-site visit somewhere in the Southern California area, he certainly will, because that's a little bit more difficult for one of us to get to. John is outside of New Orleans. He lives in Mississippi now, but basically on the border of the state. He's an hour drive from the city of New Orleans. I live in Savannah, Georgia currently, and I'm about to be moving back to St. Pete, Florida, and Daryl is up in Ohio. We are the 4 player or people-facing members of the FlexPro Grip team. We have a full-time app developer that we are working with. We've had him now for not quite 2 years, but I believe it will be 2 years in August, maybe September. He's been amazing. So he's not player facing at all. A couple people have met him if they have specific projects, but not too many people have met Enam, but Enam's the man. I'm so grateful for him. And then we have an electronics engineer that we use on a contract basis, as well as a mechanical engineer. And then we have kind of a design firm or design group that we will talk with occasionally when we are looking to do something new. But in total, there's probably about 10 people with their hands on FlexPro Grip, and 4 of those are the names that are more player facing.
Right. So you guys do all the finances and all the taxes and all that other stuff?
We do have our part-time accountant that helps us out for sure. But no, Daryl's pretty good about that stuff. So he'll work with Sandy. Sandy is our accountant with FlexPro. But yeah, she's been with us really since the beginning. Since we started collecting money or losing money at certain points. But Sandy's been with us throughout.
That's awesome. Good. Where do you guys see it taking off to? Like 10 years, what would you like FlexPro to be?
I guess the better way to answer that question, and I don't want this to be a complete cop-out, but to me it's less where is FlexPro Grip and it's more where is baseball and where are arm injuries as a whole. And if that means FlexPro Grip is in the hands of every single person who throws a baseball, amazing. But what I care way more about than where is FlexPro Grip is having that percentage drop of 35% of all pitchers in the MLB to throw a pitch last year tore their UCL at some point in their career. If that number falls to, you ask 10 years from now, if that number's back down at 25%, I'm stoked. Now, it's hard to put an official number on it. In a perfect world, nobody ever tears their UCL again. But unfortunately, it's always going to be a math problem, and we're always going to push the boundaries of human performance, and I kind of love that. Like, I mean, I'm an athlete at heart. I want to know what the limits are. I do want to see someone throw a fastball 110 miles per hour. And, I mean, I guess I could just go watch Tom Seaver, Nolan Ryan on Today's Gun. Yeah, because all those guys throw 110. But, no, seriously, like, I would love to see that. Like, I want to see a ball get hit 130 miles per hour. And that comes with the razor-thin line between peak performance and injury. I understand that. But, yeah, I guess, Nick, the thing the way I could answer that best is saying Tommy John surgery as a whole to be eradicated. I don't want to see an athlete ever tear a UCL again because of an elbow that couldn't handle the stress. Now, if it happens in a contact injury, an elbow dislocation, that's terrible, but I understand why it happened at that point. I don't ever want to see a no contact injury to the elbow ever happen That's the goal of FlexPro at the end of the day.
For sure. And I think people hear that and they probably think like, no, Tommy John, that's crazy. Like, that's unrealistic. People forget 20 years ago we had a shoulder problem. And you never hear about guys getting shoulder injuries now. Like, the labrum and the shoulder girdle complex is almost, I don't want to say fixed, but in terms of like guys getting non-contact injuries, like you said, it's very minimal. And the game moved on from that, and people forgot about it. But it's the same thing here. Like, you guys and other people around will eventually figure it out.
Yeah, and that's what I would love. It's not like we need to be the ones that do it. We just want to be a part of the solution, because all of this stuff is multifactorial, right? It's not just being really good at FlexPro. That plays a role, because it likely shows that you are strong enough, or it shows that you can produce force fast enough, or maybe it gives an indicator of what your muscle tendon tissue quality looks like. But that doesn't take into account your readiness to actually throw a ball, like what you've done from a throwing program perspective, how well you've been managed, what are you throwing the pitches that you are best suited for. All those things can greatly determine how ready you are on a daily basis, and then ultimately your potential injury risk. So yeah, we just want to continue to educate, push, like move the needle, push the industry forward, all those cliches about doing better, but I believe them. Like that's what we want.
That's refreshing. That's refreshing to hear that, it's more about the big picture with you guys, as opposed to like you trying to posture yourselves as the leaders, the kings, whatever, the top of the hill. Like ultimately, like that'll probably go hand in hand. But keep in mind, like what the bigger picture is, as far as like reducing arm injuries is. I honestly think is like probably the more important, is the most important thing as far as like getting athletes to that point. Because I think right now we just have so many people that are trying to make it about themselves, and I think ultimately that like puts a pretty low ceiling on the potential of us getting to that point of reducing injuries. But seeing someone who I consider like a leader in the field right now, advocating for that, I think is like one of the biggest things for us that will eventually get to that point.
Well, I appreciate that. And one of the things that I really loved about what we've been able to do with FlexPro, I do think it's one of those things that comes with the unique positioning of being an outsider at the beginning, is it required us to develop relationships and ask questions to so many people that do already have their foot in the door, or when we were coming up already had their foot in the door. So through conversations with people like you, Terry, or Dylan Newcomer, who is now the physical therapist at Driveline, and Nolan Rapay in St. Louis, and Emily Faree over in California, and then the countless doctors and surgeons, whether it's Paul Bukite, who's the head of medical with the Phillies, Lonnie Soloff, who's the head of medical with the Guardians, even going to ASMI and meeting with Glenn Fleissig and John Slowick and their crew down there. Like, we needed people to at least be willing to hear us out at one point. I know we told kind of the other side of that story earlier, where we said like the times we got laughed at or kind of had the door slammed in our face, but the way that we've had to enter the industry has forced us in the best way possible to develop and cultivate so many relationships that we would be so naive to claim that we're doing this alone, because we're not in this position because of anything we did alone. The only reason FlexPro Grip is where it stands today is because what the industry has done as a whole. And we can take that back. We can track it all the way back to all the research that we talked about earlier, from what Frank Jobe did with the first surgery back in the 70s to all the research that continues to come out. Because what we tell people all the time, Nick, you'll probably like this one, is if we are wrong, it means every single person that ever published any of those articles is wrong as well. And if that's the case, I can probably live with that. It would suck. It would be miserable. But at least I know that we were all wrong together. But what it means is we can also all be right together. And that's pretty awesome.
That is pretty awesome. That's well said, too.
Thank you.
Okay. I think that about sums it up, really, like with FlexPro Grip. Thank you, Adam, for coming on. That was, I think, probably the most intricate episode we've had in the sense of like the level of detail that we got. So that was great to see. Thank you for that. Although we did have Abbott on, that was pretty good too. But either way, either one, both you guys were like the level of detail was very high. So thank you for giving that to us, and also like telling us how FlexPro was built, and then how it operates today. That was good. So.
Of course, and I'm happy to bomb it at the last minute if you want me to. If it was overly detailed, we can just throw it all out, and I can ruin this episode for you fast.
I mean,
give us your latest hurling story.
Oh no, okay. So Nick, is this something you're familiar with at all? When
Nope.
Terry asked me to talk about hurling.
No, but I'm down
Okay.
for it.
All right. Okay, so we'll do a brief background. Hurling is the national sport of Ireland. It's like 2,000 or 3,000 years old. I got sucked into playing hurling back in the spring of 2023 because I had stopped coaching baseball. I was FlexPro Grip full time. The only time I ever did anything for myself outside of working out was going to the golf course. It was before my wife and I had our daughter, and the only way I competed in anything is on the golf course. However, I also don't like golfing with other people. So I was just alone all the time for everything. And golf is very expensive. So I was throwing money away. I was getting better and I was having fun, but I really wanted to compete again. And I wanted to like get a workout. I knew I needed to do more cardio, and I hate running, like distance running. I love sprinting. Hate running. I tried to play pickup soccer. Savannah, Georgia, for whatever reason, has this insane barrier to entry to play pickup soccer. I say insane barrier to entry. They just want to know your prior position, your playing history, who you've played with. It's like, no, you don't need to know that. Like, I promise you, I can go out and run around and I will be okay, and you don't need to judge me because I played 1 year of junior high soccer. Like, I promise I'll be okay. But no, supposedly that's not enough. They need to know your whole life background of every soccer match you've ever played in, how many caps you have for whatever team. Whatever, that's separate, and I'm still salty about it if you couldn't tell. But what it resulted in is me being so desperate that I went to meetup.com to find somehow I was going to get involved in the city of Savannah in some sport. And the only sport that was operating at that time, like the actual registration window was open in late April, was this hurling club, the Savannah Gaelic Athletic Association. I show up to practice. It's like, okay, that was pretty fun. I get to whack a ball with a stick. It's a little too far away, so I'm not going to go run and grab it unless you think it matters. But it's kind of like a mixture of field hockey and lacrosse. So you hit this ball with a stick running down the field. You hit it to someone's hand. You can't pick the ball up off the ground with your hand. But then you're trying to whack the ball through football uprights or past a goalie that's defending basically a soccer goal. So the field is massive. You're sprinting around. You're running as fast as you can, trying to hit a ball as far as you possibly can or as hard as you can past a goalie and passing it to your teammates. I ended up liking the game and probably taking it a little more too seriously than I should have, and I got selected to the United States Gaelic Athletic Association Southeast team to go compete in the World Games this summer in
Let's
July.
go.
So I'm going to Ireland in a month, actually a little less than a month, to wear my USA Southeast jersey and try to bring a world champion trophy back to the States.
That's sick.
Just this past weekend, I was in Atlanta for kind of like a friendly, like a tune-up. It was it was the regional or the divisional championships. Unfortunately, our Savannah team didn't qualify, but I went there because we had like a world's team friendly, and yeah, so I'm gearing up for that. I'm stoked. One thing you guys will appreciate, and I've struggled with it immensely, is I really hate knowing that I can look out at a baseball field and know that Jackson Merrill would be better than me at this game in 3 months. Ellie De La Cruz would be potentially the greatest of all time. You just look at these guys who are in the show right now, like Jake Cronenworth, a guy who's like ambidextrous to an extent and has like this multi-sport background. Jake Cronenworth would probably be an absolute legend of the game. And like that eats at me so much, knowing that I've dedicated 2 days a week maybe for 3 years to this game and have gotten to this level, and there are guys that I don't even belong in the same stratosphere of athletically that exist, and they truly could be the best. So like just looking at it annoys me and it irks me, because I think I finally understand what it was like to be JD Drew and be like, I'm that good at baseball that I'll just turn it on in the playoffs. And I will be the best player of all time every single playoff. But do not ask me to show up to a 2:00 game on July 17th. No shot.
See, I feel like
Adam BJ Upton Moreau.
I feel like you have to give yourself credit though, because this whole thing started, and this is what made me laugh, on Meetup.com. I mean, that sounds like a hookup site, for God's sake. Like,
Yep.
That's electric.
No, Meetup.com is for desperate adults who are looking for something to do. And now, if we really wanted to get into like why I was in this position, like I moved to Savannah with an opportunity to coach, and thankfully FlexPro Grip was in a position where I was able to step away from that coaching and pursue FlexPro full time. But it meant I walked away from the baseball field and I was no longer competing. And yeah, I was still in the baseball world, but me being in the baseball world was staring at spreadsheets of data and making sure guys were ready to go on the field. But I no longer had that compete. I no longer was able to look to my left and right and think, like, what are we going to do to win this game today? And, of course, for someone who's been in sports so long, that means so much. And I thought it was just going to be, like, a good way for me to run around a field again and, like, feel that in practice. Because originally I told myself I was not going to compete in a game. And then, of course, like 2 weeks after I joined the club, they were like, hey, we've got a match against the Charleston club. You should come out. Like, it'd be a great way for you. Like, it's not a tournament. It's just like a friendly game. It'll be a great way for you to get experience. And I played in that, and I scored my first point, my first goal. I was like, ooh, this is kind of cool. I do like it. And then I go to my first tournament that summer in Raleigh. I'm like, oh, no, this isn't for me. Like, guys are way too good. And then we have a long enough time without tournaments where, like, I kind of start, like, feeling myself a little bit. I was like, oh, this is fun. And then everyone has that one moment. We were playing a tournament down in Tampa, and I just had that game where I was like, oh, I really like this. And yeah, I became addicted to an adult club sport. So sue me.
Jerry, I think we got to start a Base by Pros hurling section now because of that. That was electric, honestly.
I don't know if I have that. I don't know if I have that amount of drive in me for hurling.
I mean, it sounds like you gotta just jump into it like Adam did, and then like once you hit that first goal, you're like, all right, this hits like crack. Like,
and you're gonna love Nick. So I don't know if you have any Irish blood in you. I certainly don't, which is what makes this even funnier. My wife does have some Irish heritage, but for those of you who kind of like are in the know, crack in Gaelic is like fun, or like they'll say like what's the crack, and it like CRAIC, and it means like what's everyone up to, or like what's going on, what's the fun, what's everyone getting into. So people will ask like, what's the crack or say that was great crack. So when you said it'll hit like crack.
Yep.
And yeah, like the funny thing is like that's what everyone says with this game.
That's so funny.
They talk about it as crack.
That's funny. I'm gonna start throwing that around Terry. Well, Terry, what's the crack?
Exactly. Exactly.
That's awesome. All right. Well, Adam, thanks again for coming on. We're going to wrap up here. This is the Beyond the Batter's Box podcast. I'm your host, Nick Kemper. I had Terry Phillips on with me as well today. Adam Moreau, founder of FlexPro Grip, or co-founder. Thank you.